Hi, this is Brad Linder with Liliputing, and this is a Toshiba Satellite U845W laptop. And one of the first things that you might notice about it is that this is a very wide notebook. In fact, it's got a 14-inch diagonal display, but if you compare it to something with a 12-inch diagonal display, you'll see that measuring in one direction, they're about the same size, but it's much, much wider in this direction. So whereas this guy has a 1366 by 768 pixel display, this one has a 1792 by 768 pixel display. So it's a 21 by 9 aspect ratio display that's really designed in a lot of ways for multimedia content, although it might not be the ideal device for that, which we'll get to in a moment. First, let's take a quick look around the sides. We've got two USB 3.0 ports and an Ethernet jack, which actually has to extend a little bit down because the laptop's only about 0.8 inches thick, and there's not really a lot of room here for a full-size Ethernet. On the back, we've got a couple of fans, which do get reasonably loud at times. We've got an Intel Core i5 processor, and it's an Ivy Bridge CPU, which generates a fair amount of heat. When you're listening to music or watching videos, you might notice these fans, but if the speakers are up, you might not. If you're in a quiet room and you have the sound off, the fans do get pretty noticeable. We've got an HDMI port, another USB port, so a total of 3 USB ports, mic and headphone, and an SD card slot. On the bottom, like a lot of ultrabooks, you'll notice that there's no access panels here. You can't get the battery out. So if you need more than the 5 to 5.5 hours of battery life that you get from this laptop, you're probably going to want to invest in a travel charger or something. And there's no way to upgrade the hard drive, RAM, or other components. Now you've got about 6 gigs of RAM, you've got a 500 gigabyte hard drive, and a 32 gigabyte solid state cache drive. So there's not a lot of reason to upgrade. But if you wanted to, that's not going to be very easy to do. Now let's get to that screen. As I mentioned, you've got this sort of ultra widescreen display, and you can see it resumes from sleep very quickly. And it's not much higher than your typical laptop display, but it is much, much wider. And what you can do with that is watch widescreen movies without any black bars on the sides, any black bars on the top and the bottom. So the overall impact of this on movies with a 21.9 aspect ratio display is pretty great. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of movies with that aspect ratio. So if we go to, say, YouTube, you'll notice that most movies are in 4:3 or 16:9, and when you view those in full screen, you do wind up with black bars on the sides. So as for the multimedia-centric features, it's sort of interesting. There's no Blu-ray drive, there's no DVD drive here, so most of the videos that you're likely to watch are going to be streaming over the internet or downloaded from the internet, and I think you are still going to wind up with these bars on the sides. That said, it's a pretty good video viewing experience, and Toshiba took advantage of the extra space that you get from that widescreen display to put some great speakers on the sides of the keyboard. So you've got these Harman Kardon speakers that are louder and clearer and have a better frequency response, I think, than most laptop speakers that you're going to hear. So it's great for listening to music, it's great for watching videos, as long as you don't mind that you are probably going to have the black bars on the sides if you're watching most videos these days. They're not going to replace external speakers in terms of volume or headphones, but they're better than the tinny, sort of thin-sounding laptop speakers that you usually get. Now, another thing that I really like here in terms of the screen, though, is while video might not be the best use case, multiple windows side by side work really, really well. And you'll notice here that we've got 2 windows open. On a typical laptop, what you would see is something more like this, where you just sort of get part of the website, but not the full website side by side. Here, you can get most of the websites side by side because you've got 1792 pixels from left to right. And while there's still a little bit of, say, Liliputing.com that doesn't fit on the screen here, most of it does, and you get the content column, which is really the part that you want from most websites. In addition to viewing websites, you can also just fit multiple windows side by side. So I spend a lot of time with one window open reading and another window open writing. As somebody who's doing a lot of research for the articles I write on a daily basis, it's handy to be able to do side-by-side windows. And so I really kind of like the side-by-side experience they get here. And Toshiba's kind of expected that too, because if you look, there's some special software that they've included so that you can tap these little icons and it goes to different split screen views that Toshiba offers. And you can adjust the settings using a split screen utility that Toshiba has. And it shows up on most applications, so it's sort of just built into the Windows Manager. So, didn't mean to do that. So overall, in terms of the general user experience, I like having the widescreen display. I definitely like the speed and performance that you get from the Core i5 processor and the Intel HD 4000 graphics. It doesn't have discrete graphics like an NVIDIA graphics processor, but when I ran the Street Fighter 4 benchmark, it scored higher than any other laptop I've tested, including others with Ivy Bridge processors, running at about 45 frames per second. And you know, the fact that when it resumes from sleep, it resumes in about 2 seconds. It takes a little bit longer to resume from hibernate because it does have a hard drive, and so it does sometimes save all of your data to the hard drive if it's been in sleep for a long time. It takes a little longer to recover from that and wake up, but generally speaking, it's a fast computer. It's got a nice widescreen display. I don't really love the keyboard. I find that the keyboard, the keys seem to be spaced a little bit funny, and I type a little bit more slowly on this than I do on some other laptops. The spacebar also seems to be a little bit finicky. Sometimes I push it and the space doesn't appear. It's hard to tell whether I got a demo unit that wasn't in perfect condition. Toshiba loaned me this unit for purposes of this review, or if that's a universal problem. So if you've had problems with the keyboard on this particular laptop, let us know in the comments. I'd appreciate it. The touchpad is a nice wide touchpad, which, because you've got such a wide screen, I find that sometimes it takes more than one swipe to get the cursor from one side to the other, but it works reasonably well. It's not super sensitive for single tap when you just sort of touch the touchpad to trigger an action, but you can click on it. Sometimes I find that I'm clicking in the right side, and I think that I'm clicking to do a right click, but I clicked a little bit too high and it registers as a left click. So in general, I have a better experience with this laptop when I'm using an external mouse, when I plug in one to the USB port. But you know, it does work if you need to use it with the touchpad alone. Just make sure that you know when you're trying to register a left or a right that you really have to be sort of towards the bottom corner to do a left click or to do a right click. To do the a click anywhere else, just click anywhere on the touchpad and it pretty much works. So with a price at around $1,000, it's not the cheapest ultrabook that you're going to find, but it's really one of the only laptops you're going to find with this super widescreen resolution. It would be nice to have a couple more pixels on an up and down front instead of just your left and right. You know, websites are going to fit the page better, but if you like viewing a lot of content, you still are going to need to do a fair amount of scrolling up and down. One thing that I do really like here, though, is that if you have, say, spreadsheets or other applications that really can take advantage of extra space, you know, they look pretty good here. Yeah. Anyways, I'm starting to ramble, but I guess I just wanted to give you an overview here of the Toshiba Toshiba Satellite U845W widescreen ultrabook with the ultra widescreen display. Might not be perfect for multimedia depending on the multimedia that you're using, but it does have other uses if you really like being able to do multi-windows, not just multitasking on a computer. And the performance is really pretty good. At £4, it's not the lightest machine. At $1,000, it's not the cheapest machine, but it's you're not going to find a lot of other things that offer the performance, the widescreen display, and if those are things that really matter to you, then you could do worse than this laptop. You know, it's one that I'm actually considering purchasing for my next ultrabook. I wouldn't mind if it had a built-in large SSD instead of a hard drive. I wouldn't mind if the screen was a little bit larger. I wouldn't mind if it was a little bit lighter or had a replaceable battery. But I've seen it on sale for as little as $900, and at that price, it's a pretty good buy. So, anyways, this is Brad Linder with Liliputing and a quick video review of the Toshiba Satellite U845W Ultrabook. You can find more details at liliputing.com.